Hello, and thanks for joining us today for today's webinar titled Why Cloud DR Can Be Its Own Disaster. I'm Dave LeClaire from Unitrends, and I will be both your moderator and your presenter today. I'll be taking through the presentation, but don't forget that one lucky attendee will be walking away with a $100 Amazon gift card, and we'll contact the winner via email after the webinar. Before I start on the presentation, I need to cover a few housekeeping items. This session will be recorded, and after the event, you will receive an email with a link to the on-demand version of the webinar. I'd also like to encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. You can do so by typing them into the Q&A box at the bottom right of the player. We'll answer your questions at the end of the session. So at this point, I'm going to basically dive into our presentation for today. And thank you again for joining us. So when we think about what's kind of happening with disaster recovery for many enterprises, small, medium businesses out there, we're really struggling with a problem that we kind of consider a less is more world. IT has less time, less money, less tolerance for downtime or the availability to even have downtime in your systems. And at the same time, IT is facing more risks, more work, more projects than ever before. So this has really led to a dangerous gap in data coverage for protection, as well as disaster recovery and business continuity challenges. We simply don't have the time, given legacy systems, as well as all the proliferation of new things that are happening in our environment, to do things the way we've done things for a very long period of time. And if it feels like this problem is getting worse and that this change is accelerating, it's because it really is. If we look at how fast data is growing, how fast the number of systems we have to manage are growing, that's growing much faster than the number of admins who are available to manage that data in those systems and keep them all up and running. In fact, your data is probably growing anywhere between 30 to 50 times faster than your budget and the number of admins that are available to manage it. And in addition to that, we're now having to deal with new risks. It used to be downtime was created by either a user doing something wrong or a component failing or natural disaster, either wide scale like a hurricane or a tornado, or local such as like a fire or a flood or something like that. Now, one of the biggest risks to downtime, one of the biggest causes of downtime is ransomware. In fact, over 60% of businesses have been hit by ransomware already. And ransomware attacks are just increasing. Matter of fact, analysts are projecting that ransomware attacks are going to double in frequency every year for the next 5 years. So we're really just at the beginning of this problem of ransomware getting into our systems and locking them down. And the cost of downtime really is staggering. So across North America, IT downtime costs businesses approximately $700 billion. Worldwide, it was closer to $1.7 trillion. So the cost of downtime can be both damaging to your reputation, damaging to your bottom line, and really, from an IT perspective, can even put your jobs in jeopardy. When things go well, when we do things well and our DR systems work exactly as we anticipate and exactly as we built them, no one really knows about it when a disaster occurs. Things just seamlessly work. When they don't work, unfortunately, it can become quite public. Delta Airlines unfortunately had a very public data center outage last August that actually had them down for an extended period of time and cost the company about $150 million. Now, your downtime event is probably not going to be nearly as staggering as that, but the average cost of a single data center outage still, for a typical company, is over $700,000. So even if you're not dealing with what Delta dealt with on the scale that they dealt with, chances are it's still going to be very expensive for you, both in terms of your bottom line, in terms of your reputation, and the impact and distraction it is going to be for your company. So when we look at the ways of actually doing disaster recovery and building a disaster recovery service, there really are three primary choices for the types of cloud environments that you can use. Of course, you can build your own and do it within a secondary co-location of your own, but if you're looking to actually use an outside vendor to do it, there really are three primary choices. The first is to use a hyperscale cloud, such as Amazon, AWS, Google, Microsoft Azure, one of those hyperscale clouds where you may already have workloads of some sort running, and basically use that as your landing site for your DR workloads. You replicate data into those environments and spin them up if you need to in a disaster. It can be a very cost-effective way of doing DR. However, you're really depending on kind of multiple vendors at that point to basically be able to deliver your full data protection and DR solution. We actually have a solution called Boomerang, which actually will allow you to replicate VMware workloads into the hyperscale clouds such as AWS and Azure. It's very cost-effective, very easy to set up, and it certainly is a way, if you don't have a DR environment set up, to get one very rapidly and very cost-effectively set up. However, we don't think that this is the best, most ideal way of actually making sure that your disaster recovery isn't going to become a disaster at some point in the future. The second option is to use a solution, a cloud created by an MSP or a cloud service provider, or what's now sometimes being called SSPs, strategic service providers, where they're essentially building clouds for their customers to use, typically using the backup vendors' technology within their cloud environment, and the customer basically uses them as a full end-to-end environment. It's a very effective way of doing it, and if you're already using an MSP, it can be a good way of actually getting your cloud up and running. However, you really owe it to yourself to make sure you understand the technology that your MSP is actually using. In many cases, it may look like a black box to you as a customer, but the reason why I say you should be aware of what's underneath that is the more moving pieces the MSP actually has, the more likely something may go wrong. So if they're using technology from 5 different companies and something goes wrong, they may have to turn to multiple vendors to actually sort things out, and that could actually cause downtime challenges for you. So certainly not all the MSP environments are created equal depending on what providers are providing. And then the third option is a vendor-based continuity cloud, such as Unitrends Cloud, where we provide both the ability to do long-term data retention for your backups as well as disaster recovery as a service. There are a number of backup providers that actually have their own clouds, but not all of them do. We actually think this is the ideal environment. We're going to talk a lot more about how this actually keeps you more protected and is a better solution than some of the other alternatives out there. But truthfully, Unitrends supports all of these options. We support doing DR into hyperscale clouds. We have many MSPs who are building clouds themselves using our technologies, and we have our own purpose-built cloud that we own, manage, and fully control. So truthfully, I have cloud environments that can suit anybody's needs, anybody's architecture. So I can honestly say which one of these I actually think is most beneficial without actually slamming one of the technologies. Because if you preferred one of the other ways because you have a cost reason or some other strategic reason for wanting to go a different direction, we can certainly accommodate you for that. But let's look at some of the considerations as you're looking at these things. Your ability to meet an SLA is going to be different depending on the different types of clouds that are out there. And this may be one of the most important things to understand to make sure that when you declare a disaster, if you're using a disaster recovery partner, that you can fully understand exactly how the SLA is being delivered so that you're not surprised of how long it's going to take to get your entire environment back up and running. Another difference between some of these is the disaster recovery platforms that they support. Do these solutions support only virtualized workloads, or do they also support physical workloads? If they're supporting physical workloads, is it Windows only? Is it Windows and Linux? Is it everything you have going back to the oldest operating systems you may still have in your environment? You need to understand exactly what is going to be provided, because you actually still have many physical workloads, and most businesses still have a few, and those tend to be mission-critical workloads. You need to make sure that you can actually protect those as well. Security is another concern. I think this one's actually probably dropping in criticality. Most of the cloud vendors are extremely secure, certified, tested, locked down, probably more so than most enterprise data centers are, and can deliver you security reports and testing reports that actually certify exactly what they're doing for physical security, what they're doing for electronic security. But it is certainly a consideration when you work through this. Cost, obviously, is a consideration, as is the flexibility to support those different workloads, those different environments, and be able to have perhaps more critical workloads have a higher level of protection and a better SLA. The less critical workloads that you still want to protect, you may want to actually be able to do that in a more cost-effective way. Maybe you lower the SLA requirement in order to do that. You want to have the flexibility to basically meet the needs of all of your data, all of your workloads, from your most critical down to your less critical ones. Having a vendor that actually has a good reputation and an outstanding support group is also critical, particularly when you start looking at some of the doing DR and some of the hyperscale clouds. You may not actually be able to talk to a human being at some of those clouds. Or if you're looking at some of the smaller vendors, their support organization may only be working Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And your DR is probably, if you have a DR event, it's probably not going to occur on a regularly scheduled business hour. They tend to not care whether it's a weekend or the middle of the night when things go wrong. You want to make sure that the support organization is going to be there to support you and make sure that you get up and running. And if something does go wrong and you actually need their help, you should be able to get it 24/7 around the clock, even on Christmas Day if you need it. And lastly, and we'll talk a bit about this in a few minutes, the ability to test your DR environment is also very important. One of the things that we see is many enterprises simply set up their DR environment and then they never actually test it. They never stress it. They never verify that it's going to work the way they expect it to until they actually have a disaster. And as a result of that, many are surprised that when their DR environments don't come up exactly as they expect to, and they're troubleshooting them in the middle of a disaster. It's really not a good way to operate. It is a good way to have your disaster recovery solution become a disaster in and of itself. So when we talk about hyperscale clouds, like I said, we have solutions that do that. We have a solution called Boomerang that will allow you to replicate your workloads, your VMware workloads, into AWS or Azure. We do all the hard work to basically move those workloads. We transform them into, if it's going into AWS, for example, we will transform them into native AMIs. We make it so that it's very cost effective. You're not paying for compute. Your storage is basically all you're paying for. Your data is getting replicated. We transformed it into an AMI so that if you do need to declare a disaster, with the single press of a button, you can rehydrate and spin up those workloads very, very quickly. You can literally be up in minutes. And it's a very cost-effective way of doing it. The downside of a solution like this is you're essentially dependent on multiple vendors. You're dependent on AWS or Azure to basically be there for your DR environment. If they have an outage, if you haven't been replicating into different geographic zones, you actually may have an outage as well. If you actually need to get an SLA from them, you're probably not going to be able to get an SLA that guarantees that your environment's going to be able to recover in, say less than an hour. So it's a good cost-effective way. Boomerang actually only costs a little less than $20 per workload to basically get a DR environment up and running. But you are making some trade-offs in kind of the end-to-end solution. So I started off talking about how we're living in a less is more world, and IT professionals are expected to do more with less and be more with less than ever before. And we think there's a few things that you have to deliver in order to allow IT professionals to simply get more done with flat to down budgets, flat to down resources. We want to free you up to actually work on other things for your business than having to worry about, is my backup running properly? Is my DR environment replicating properly? Is my DR environment configured and tested properly? We should be able to use automation to solve a lot of that. And we believe one way of doing this is through delivering you an all-in-one solution that actually has all of your backup, disaster recovery, cloud, testing of your DR environment, everything kind of in one single solution. That eliminates a lot of the finger pointing when you have multiple vendors. It also means it's less management. It's less time for you to set up the environment, less time for you to manage it over time. And it also is something that we deliver a solution that's very flexible, that will adapt to your requirements, your needs. We don't require you to adapt to us. Do you have virtual and physical workloads? We can support both of them. Do you have VMware and Hyper-V and Citrix Zen Server all mixed in the same environment? We can support that. So that's really what we want to deliver. As a result of that, we should be able to deliver to you more uptime, more confidence, so that you have confidence that your backup in your DR environment is working properly, and that if you do need to rely on it, if you do get that call at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night that that a disaster has happened, that you're going to be able to have your environment come back exactly the way you expect it to, with no surprises. And by using automation and delivering you more confidence so that you don't have to continuously be checking on these things, we want to deliver to you more free time to do more projects that are critical for your business, or maybe even just more free time to get home and have dinner with your family. So we do this by delivering a solution that has what we call the ruthless pursuit of simplicity. We've taken all the components you need to do backup, disaster recovery, both locally and in the cloud, and tested all of that and delivered it into a single solution. If you look at an old world legacy solution, what you would have to do typically for your local backups is go out, acquire some servers, acquire some storage, load a hypervisor on top of that hardware, load it up with operating systems, typically Windows operating systems, then install backup software on top of that and get it all configured and tuned just to do your local backups. If you want to actually get those backups off-site for long-term retention or for disaster recovery, you then probably have to go out and acquire some IIS compute, load up some software on top of that, attach some IIS storage on top of that, get all that configured, and then if you actually want to make sure it all works together, you're probably going to have to look at some either building your own scripts or using some other piece of software to test all of it and make sure it's all working. What we've done is we've dramatically simplified this by building an all-in-one solution. We've taken all of that stuff to do local backup and we put it into an all-in-one physical appliance or an all-in-one virtual appliance that can be installed into your virtual environment. But we've done all the heavy work. We've done the integration of the compute, the storage, the virtualization, the operating system, the backup software. We've tuned all of it for the amount of data that's being stored in that appliance. And we've also built a purpose-built cloud, the Unitrends Cloud, that's designed for data storage of backups and designed for disaster recovery as a service. In addition to this, all of our solutions have the ability to deliver what we call recovery assurance, which is automated testing of your backups in your DR environment to make sure that everything is working properly, all from one vendor. So as a result of this, we kind of eliminate some of the finger pointing. We make things a lot simpler to manage, to get set up and manage over time. So another way of viewing this from a DR standpoint is what I'm showing you here in this picture, is essentially there's 3 or 4 major components of what we're delivering for a DR environment. The first is to have an on-premise, all-in-one data protection appliance, deployed as either a virtual appliance or as a physical appliance. It gives you all the things you need to protect your data locally. Some disasters are small. They might just simply a single server frying, which brings, might be a host and brings down a few workloads. You should be able to restore that very quickly from your local backup appliance and be up and running. For more wide-scale disasters, you want to make sure you have a cloud backup solution. And our Forever Cloud, which is part of the Unitrends Cloud, is designed to deliver a very cost-effective solution for storing your backups in the Unitrends Cloud. Our Unitrends Cloud is available in different geographies. We have multiple data centers here in the U.S. We also have environments in Canada, Germany, UK, and Australia. Once you actually have your backups in the Unitrends Cloud, we can then use those backups to spin up your critical workloads. And we're able to deliver a 1-hour SLA for your entire environment. Unlike other vendors who sometimes will offer SLA that sounds really great, they'll offer you a 5-minute SLA or a 15-minute SLA, but then you realize that's per workload and it's additive. So if you have 100 workloads, that 15-minute SLA may actually turn into 25 hours. For us, it's 1 hour for your entire environment, no matter how many VMs, how many physical systems you actually have to bring up and running. And we actually deliver it with recovery assurance, the ability to automate the backup and DR testing of your entire environment so that you can have absolute confidence that things are going to work exactly as you'd expect it to, things are going to be able to recover when you need them exactly as you'd expect it. So I'm going to basically cycle through each of those major components real quickly and basically try and highlight between what existing kind of old world solutions do versus what the Unitrends does with our all-in-one solution. An old world solution, you had typically a lot more vendors, probably a vendor for doing local backup, a vendor for doing DR replication, the vendor for actually doing the cloud infrastructure as a service portion of it. So you get potentially a lot more finger pointing, a lot more management. There's a lot more work to set that up, and you're potentially constantly tuning it. If something goes wrong, chances are it's up to you to basically isolate it, which vendor is actually responsible. As a result of that, you wind up with somewhat limited continuity, and you have no recovery assurance. You're kind of hoping that things are going to recover when you need to depend on this. Frequently, these older solutions, these legacy solutions, are Windows-based. And now that we're dealing with ransomware more and more, ransomware targets Windows systems thousands of times more than it targets any other operating system out there. So if your backups and your DR software is all dependent and running on Windows, it's actually going to be susceptible to getting hit by ransomware as well, which could be an absolute worst-case situation. You get hit with a ransomware attack, you think, oh, no problem, I've got backups, I'll just roll the clock back to my last backup, and then you realize the ransomware has gotten into your backups and encrypted your backups as well. That's a worst-case solution. As a result of this, because you have a lot of vendors, a lot of fragmented parts of the solution, you wind up with lower customer satisfaction and a lot more worries. We've solved all that. We've actually do all this with one vendor, which one throat to choke if something isn't working properly, or if you need to expand and support more data, you simply have to call one vendor. It results in a lot less work. To get that initial local backup up and running, it's a 5-minute rack connect and go. You literally connect networking and power, and you're pretty much up and running. Because we've actually delivering both the local and cloud backup and DR all from one vendor, we can wrap recovery assurance around all of it. We can test your entire environment and validate that not only your backups are good, but your DR and functions operating as you'd expect it to. we're able to deliver more security. Our appliances, both our virtual appliance and physical appliance, are built on a hardened version of Linux, much less susceptible just because it's Linux to ransomware, but because it's an appliance, we're able to lock down ports that are not necessary to do backup and DR, and as a result of this, there's a lot fewer ways to even get into the box, so it's much more secure. And because of this, we actually wind up with higher customer satisfaction. And the reason being is because you may actually have all these different components from different vendors, and they may all have very good customer satisfaction, 95, 98% customer satisfaction. But because you're potentially bringing in 4, 5, 6, 7 vendors to basically deliver the entire stack from the hardware all the way up to the cloud, when you do 95% times 95% times 95%, you actually wind up with a much lower customer satisfaction number. Unitrends consistently gets a 98% or better customer satisfaction, and we have an NPS score that's really world class in the 70s. Our customers tend to find that our support organization, which is co-located with our development team, is very knowledgeable and is able to basically get them through any other problems that they actually may be having. It's simply one call for support for everything. From the cloud standpoint, when we look at the Unitrends Cloud versus kind of what a lot of other vendors, I'm not even going to say old world of vendors, most vendors actually do, they're relying on third-party cloud vendors. As a result of that, you do get more finger pointing if something goes wrong. You're generally dealing with different vendors for support, different vendors for billing. They tend to have limited or no DRaaS. Again, they tend to rely on third parties. You're not going to get recovery assurance. You're going to get more worries. You're probably not going to get an SLA. Unitrends has solved all that with our Unitrends Cloud and our DRaaS solution. We've eliminated the finger pointing, a lot less management. Everything's coming from a single vendor. We support not only your virtualized workloads, but we will support all your physical workloads in our DRaaS as well. Matter of fact, we're the industry's only solution that actually delivers recovery assurance, not only for virtualized workloads, but physical workloads as well. We have data retention options that scale from just a few months to unlimited. If you want it to actually have infinite retention with Unitrends, you can certainly purchase that and have more confidence that your data is always going to be available. Likewise, our DR solution, we deliver a 1-hour SLA on our premium DRaaS, which basically means whether you have 1 workload or 500 workloads to spin up in DR, we will actually have your entire environment up in one hour. That is a premium offer. If you actually don't need that 1-hour SLA for every workload, you can scale that back and only get the premium for the workloads that need that 1-hour SLA. And for others, you can actually scale back the SLA and actually bring your cost down if that's something you need. And we also deliver things like WAN optimization and data seeding, so you can get your data to the cloud very rapidly as well, without having to send it all through a WAN for the initial data seeding into the cloud. So I can't really talk about DR without talking about DR testing, because it is one of the biggest challenges we see when we talk to people about DR. DR testing can be expensive and it can be time-consuming. A DR test can be disruptive. It can actually wind up, taking many cycles of your team. It can cost, $30,000, $40,000 a test to do. And as a result of that, we find a lot of companies that are not doing DR tests at all. So this is actually a survey we did a few months ago where we asked people, for your DR environment, how often are you testing your business continuity and your DR plan? And the majority of people, the answer was, well, we do it once a year or we've never done it. Only about a third are doing it every quarter or more frequently. And even doing it once a quarter, there can be a lot of changes in your environment where things could drift apart from your production environment, your DR environment, without you even realizing it. So you want to be able to run these tests very frequently, but because they're so expensive and so disruptive traditionally, it's just simply something that most vendors can't deliver, and most enterprises simply can't tolerate the disruption. So this is one of the key differentiators that Unitrends has. We have what we call recovery assurance. We're able to automate your DR testing. So you move from that old world of, well, I'm going to have to rely on this backup. I pray that it's going to work properly. The last time I tried to do it, there was, something wrong with the backup, or, VMware had a change block tracking issue, and there's a lot of reasons why backups potentially fail. Same thing with DR environments. DR environments frequently are kind of set up and forgotten about. So if somebody is tripped over a networking cord, or one of your servers hasn't been updated with the latest and greatest APIs for end-tier applications, things could not possibly work exactly the same in your DR environment that it does in your production environment. So as a result of that, we see a lot of scrambling during DR environments, or people not doing DR testing and skipping it altogether. The other thing that we see for companies that don't skip, oftentimes they're having to do it because they have compliance requirements to do their DR tests, once a quarter, and develop a report that proves that they've done this testing. Many regulatory requirements actually mandate this, and it can be really a challenge to get it all done. With recovery assurance, we're able to fully automate at an application level the testing, the failover, and failback of your DR environment, where we actually use your backups that are in your DR environment to bring up your DR environment in an automated fashion. You actually set what on a per application basis, what your recovery time objective and recovery point objective would be per application. And our recovery assurance capabilities will actually bring those workloads up and not just validate that they booted and that they get into a running state, but we can actually test complex end-tier applications that have dependencies in each other, that those interlinks are working. If you have an application that has a dependency on an SQL database, we'll make SQL calls into it and make sure that we get responses back that look reasonable. If you have different steps and different sequences for applications to come up in, we can make sure that those applications come up in that sequence and validate that they're working properly, all in an automated fashion. So you can actually have this run once a quarter, once a month, once a week. You can have it run daily if you want. And we will deliver you an automated report into your email that basically confirms you had these recovery point and recovery time objectives, and you're meeting or exceeding all of them. You're good to go. Your environment is going to work properly, and we've certified this recovery point. Therefore, if you have something that, for whatever reason, falls out and doesn't recover the way you would expect it, you'll know about it. You'll be out of compliance, and you'll see it as a big red X in the report. Now you can do something about it, and you can do something about it on a nice, sunny Wednesday afternoon, as opposed to scrambling at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night when you've had a disaster declared. And because you're getting this automated report delivered to you, that's actually can be the basis for compliance reporting. You can automate those compliance reports. So it really is something that can save you a tremendous amount of time and dramatically increase your confidence in your DR environment. As I said, it's a little bit more detailed. This actually can work with both your virtual, your VMware and Hyper-V environments, as well as your physical environments. We will do this with physical Windows servers, for example. This actually allows you to have absolute certainty that you're going to be able to recover. You don't have to guess. You'll know, because it's actually been done in reality in your actual DR environment, and you can actually see that everything has worked properly. So this is kind of the summary. All of our solutions, our physical appliance, our recovery series physical appliance, as well as our Unitrends backup software, which is our virtual appliance, have the capability of working with the Unitrends Cloud or working with hyperscale clouds if you so desire. We also have a couple other solutions that allow you to basically support cloud environments as well. We have an Office 365 backup solution, and we have Boomerang, like I said, which will actually allow you to set up a very low-cost DR environment in AWS or Azure for your VMware virtual machines. Don't just take my word for it. Realize I'm a VP of marketing for Unitrends. I usually like to point to others who are independent out there who basically will tell you that we really are world-class in this. DCIG actually has a hybrid cloud backup appliance buyer's guide where they evaluated hundreds of appliances from every vendor out there, and they rated them as excellent, down to kind of good to basic. Unitrends had more models in the recommended, which is the highest category, than every other vendor combined. We also had more models in the excellent category than every other vendor combined. We really are differentiated in this hybrid cloud disaster recovery in this space. We are also the only vendor listed in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for both the enterprise backup Magic Quadrant as well as their DRaaS Magic Quadrant. And they have a new market guide for something they call IT resiliency automation orchestration. Long-winded term, basically talking about things such as recovery assurance, being able to automate the ability to validate that your IT environment is resilient. We're the only vendor that is in all three of those reports, really demonstrating kind of the breadth of our solution and capabilities and our ability to deliver for you. So with that, I think I'm going to check things over and see what questions have come in, and then we will wrap up. So let's see, first question. One question said, so your solution is a backup destination and also sends backups to the cloud. Yes, our primary solution basically has the on-premise components. We're a hybrid cloud solution. So we have a appliance, whether it's a physical appliance or a virtual appliance, that goes into your primary local data center, and we do backups off of that. So we basically do disk-to-disk backups of your workloads. And the reason why we recommend not going straight to the cloud and actually have local backups is because in many cases, having a local backup allows you to restore faster. If you simply have a system burn out, or you have one system that gets hit with ransomware, if that system has a lot of data on it, it could take a long time to actually pull all that data back down from the cloud. If you actually have it locally, you are able to basically get back up and running in just a couple minutes. Matter of fact, we even have the ability in our boxes to run your workloads on our physical appliance temporarily using what we call instant recovery while you actually fix the production environment. So having that local capability actually benefits you. And then we actually have a number of options for actually moving your data off-site into the cloud for long-term retention as well as disaster recovery. If you do want to go simply from your production environment into a cloud environment, that's kind of what Boomerang does. Boomerang's a replication tool that replicates your data straight into the cloud. Like I said, it's a very cost-effective solution if you're looking to go that way, but you're not going to have the complete protection that you're going to have with a full end-to-end all-in-one solution that includes both local and cloud. Let's see. I apologize. I'm doing my own moderation, so I'm looking at my own questions. Do you support third-party deduplication devices? It says, in the cloud providers. We tend to do our own deduplication, so we actually don't require third-party deduplication. We will actually be deduping your data on our appliance and before it gets sent up to the cloud. So it's one of the, again, we are an all-in-one solution. We are not requiring you to have third-party data dedupe before you get to the backup appliance. So we actually have a couple different ways of doing data deduplication. We call it adaptive data deduplication. That's actually content aware. We kind of understand what the data is. And in some cases, we will be doing inline deduplication as it's going into our appliance. In other cases, we will be doing post-processing deduplication on the data once it's inside of our appliance. There's a number of white papers on our website. If you're really interested in data dedupe, I recommend you kind of go to our website and take a look at some of those. Isn't bandwidth a major component of DR? Yes, it absolutely is. You know, we actually do a number of things to try and minimize the amount of bandwidth you actually require in order to get your data into the cloud. The first is, if you have a large environment, if you have, you know, many terabytes, if you have 100 terabytes, 200 terabytes of data, that can take a long time to get all that data into the cloud. It can take weeks, months, sending it all over a WAN connection. So one of the things that we do is we offer a data seeding to get that first data set up into the cloud. We will actually send you an actual device. You'll load your data on that. You ship it back to our cloud operations team, and they load it into the cloud. Literally, that whole process will take a couple days, kind of start to finish. It's because you're really using kind of UPS or FedEx to basically get your data into the cloud to start. And then from that point on, there's a lot of things that we do. One, we're not sending all of your data every single time. We're actually just doing the incremental changes. So any of your data that changes every day, we will send that to the cloud. So that's a much smaller percentage of the amount of data you have to send there. And we have a lot of things that we do, particularly if you're talking about our all-in-one solution where it's going to the Unitrends Cloud. Because we own both sides of the WAN connection there's a lot of things that our appliance and our cloud do to do WAN optimization. We do compression, we do data duplication, we do other forms of WAN optimization where the two sides kind of understand what the data is and what has to be sent, and we can be much more efficient with sending your data over into the Unitrends Cloud. So we're highly efficient with bandwidth usage into the Unitrends Cloud. Let's see, another question here I see about exactly what's the best way to test solutions. And I think this actually goes to the heart of what our recovery assurance capability actually does. Our recovery assurance allows you to basically test whatever application you have in the DR environment to make sure that it's working properly. We have out-of-box standard tests for things like Exchange or SQL or other applications that are very common. If you have custom applications, we also have the ability to do custom scripting within our tool so that you can actually test really as complex a test as you need to get to verify that your app is up and running. We can accommodate that. Certainly something we'd love to, you know, if this is of interest to you, get you on a phone call with one of our sales engineers, and they can walk you through exactly the details for your particular environment. Another question, do you store information regionally? How do you deal with country-specific laws for data resiliency? Our policy by default is wherever you basically move your data, so we will not move your data to another country. If you're storing it in our cloud in the U.S., it'll stay within the U.S. We may move it among, and we will share it among different data centers, so we have multiple copies of your data. We don't want to be a single point of failure for you either. So if something were to happen and there was something catastrophic that happened to one of our data centers in the cloud, we don't want you to lose your data. So we will actually replicate your data over different areas, but it will all stay within country. So if you're using our cloud in the UK, things will stay in the UK. So that generally, like I said, we have clouds in EMEA and UK and Germany. That tends to be sufficient for most of the EU. We have clouds in Canada and the US. So generally speaking, we have clouds where most of our customers actually are trying to do things. If you are in a geography and you need something else for a cloud that we don't, in a country that we don't support, it's one of the reasons why we do say we provide maximum flexibility. And we do provide all the hyperscale connectivity. So if you want to actually store your data in a cloud in Japan, that's the reason why we have a strong partnership with Microsoft, with Azure, and AWS. They have local environments, and you can actually move your data in that. You do lose some of the all-in-one benefits, but again, we're trying to deliver a solution that maximizes the flexibility to do whatever you need to do with your environment. Let's see, can your system prevent customer company admins from deleting backup data? Yes, our solution does have the ability for you to set up basically RBAC, role-based access controls. So you can basically have it so that your SQL administrator is only able to see and deal with the backups for his particular system. You know, your virtualization admins can only deal with the ones that they're supposed to see. So we do have the ability to do that. It's something that has recently been released in our software. Let's see, I probably have time for maybe one more question here. I mean, I'll do two. So somebody asked, I missed the beginning part. Can I get it offline? Yes, I said that in the beginning. We will be sending you an email with the the playback version of this, so you'll be able to get that shortly after here. And let's see. Just going through our questions here real quick. Says, as needs grows, can the appliance be upgraded by adding hard drives or memory, or do you need to purchase a bigger box? Our solutions are designed as appliances. So as a result of that, they're not dynamically expandable. So we do have 12 different sizes of appliance, which is much finer grained steps than most other vendors do. So you can step from an appliance that's 2 terabytes up to one that's almost 200 terabytes, and there's about 12 of them in our full portfolio. If you do start running out of space and you need to protect more data, we will work with you. We will work. You know, it may be possible that you can extend the current box that you actually have by moving more data to the cloud and having less data retention locally in our appliances. Our appliance is, if you actually look at our website and you look at our recommended sizing, that's a recommended sizing for a typical user with typical data, for them to actually protect that amount of data and have 30 days of retention locally on the box. So you can scale that down and get more. But if you actually do need a bigger box, we will work with you. Our upsell team, more than happy to work with you to make sure that you can step up to the next larger size that you need. But our appliances are kind of designed as appliances, not as kind of general purpose devices where you can kind of plug in additional capabilities as you go. So with that, I think we're just about out of time. I'm actually probably a couple minutes over the 45 minutes I think I was scheduled to do. So if we didn't get your question answered, I apologize. We will actually be following up with people who submitted questions and answering them offline. And I thank you for sticking with me through today's session, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.